Hello everyone, this is Stephen Balch, your instructor for computer applications at Ozarka College. What I'm going to do today is give you a little bit of feedback on the Excel Module 1 activities that I finished grading yesterday. And then I'm going to tell you what we've got coming up due for Excel Module 2 later next week. Okay. So the first thing is, like I said, I did finish grading the Excel Module 1 assignments yesterday. Hopefully you've already gone in and looked at your grades for those and read the grading comments. If you haven't done that yet, go ahead and do that as soon as you can. And just let me know if you have any questions. Overall, most of you did very well on the Excel Module 1 assignments. If I did have to count any points off, I tried to be very specific on what you missed, what formatting or formula or function or chart item that you didn't get correct. So you should be able to get all the information that you need from the grading comments. But if you still have questions after reading the grading comments, just let me know. And like I said, I'll be glad to explain any of that you don't understand. Okay. Like I said, most of you did very well on the assignments, and I always appreciate the time and effort that you're putting into the completing the assignments. So keep up the good work on that. Now, that being said, there were a couple things that a few of you had some issues with or problems with on the assignments. Specifically, there weren't very many of you that did this, but there were a couple that instead of inserting the specified formula or function to get the calculated values in the worksheet, instead of doing that, you just typed in the calculated value. Well, as I've explained before, the problem with doing that is that if you want to then later on update the worksheet, if you've just inserted a value there that doesn't have a formula to recalculate when you enter new data in the worksheet, then you're going to have to recalculate all those things by hand every time you make changes to the worksheet. So the reason that we're studying how to insert formulas and functions and not just inserting the calculated values is so that when we need to make changes to a worksheet, and businesses make changes to their worksheets on a regular basis. There are no worksheets in a business usually that are going to be just static numbers in a worksheet. They're always going to be changing as the business changes. And so in order to be able to more efficiently create worksheets and have it recalculate those values for us each time we make changes, we have to insert the formulas and functions. We cannot just type in the calculated value. That kind of defeats the whole purpose of using a program like Excel that has all the powerful tools in it. If we're not going to use those powerful tools, we might as well just type those calculated values in Microsoft Word or just in some kind of static document. So and most of you did insert the formulas and functions correctly, but there are a couple of you that need to make sure that you're following the instructions and making sure that you understand the importance of inserting the formulas and functions. All right. Another thing I noticed is on assignment number 2, where you had to open up an existing worksheet and edit it to make changes to the worksheet data, some of you did not make those changes. You just submitted the data file, before any changes were made. And so obviously I can't give you credit if you didn't actually make the specified changes to the worksheet. So just be careful from here on out. Make sure that you're submitting the correct file for your assignment, and you can always verify that you have uploaded the correct assignment There's a way to do that in Miles Arca. And so just make sure you're doing that so that you are uploading the correct file. Also, make sure that you're checking all your work. Check all your calculated values, check all your formulas and functions, check the formatting, check the chart, make sure everything's correct. Another thing I noticed that a couple of you did was instead of using the As New Sheet option when you move the chart, you just move the chart as an object onto the second worksheet tab, and it did not format it to fit the sheet. And so it was just like a floating chart over a worksheet grid. And so if you were one of those students that did that, we're going to be working with charts as we go through other modules in Excel. And so it's important for you to understand that you have to choose the As New Sheet option when you go to move the chart, so that it not only moves the chart but creates its own sheet as part of the chart itself, so that the chart is a page unto itself. Okay? All right? So those are just some of the common things that I noticed. Not very many of you did, but there were a couple of you that did that. And so if you have any questions about any of that, just let me know and I'll be glad to help you. Okay? All right. So that brings us, one other thing, the Excel Module 1 objective test. Most of you did well on that as well. Just remember that you can take those tests as many times as you want to up until the due date, and your highest grade is automatically recorded. I know I've said that several times this semester, but I always like to remind you of that. All right, so that brings us to our next set of activities, which are due later next week. So right now we are on week 7 of the semester, kind of in the middle of that week. We just had work due Monday night. We don't have anything else due this week, but we do have that work due for Excel Module 2 Thursday of next week, which is October 9th. Okay? So you've got just a little over a week to work on the Excel Module 2 activities. Now, the assignments for Excel Module 2 are going to take some time to complete. There are several formulas that you're going to be completing and several functions. So we're basically in Excel Module 2, we're going to take what you've learned about the basics of how to create a worksheet, how to how to insert formulas and functions and create a chart. We're going to take what you've learned in Module 1 and expand on that a little bit and learn some little bit more complex formulas and functions and formatting and so forth. Okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. As you're working through the Excel Module 2 assignments, make sure that you check all your formatting and your functions and formulas for accuracy before you submit your assignments. Okay? Also remember, there are demonstration videos on the Assignment 1 page that you can use. These are divided into parts. You'll notice there are 3 parts for the Excel Module 2 demonstration there. But basically in these videos, what I do is I take you step by step through the process of entering all of the titles and so forth in the worksheet, the basic data, and then inserting the formulas and functions, and then formatting the worksheet and so forth. And so if you're having problems working through the steps in the textbook, make use of these demonstration videos, because they can definitely help you to kind of guide you through the process of completing the worksheet. Okay? So just kind of be aware of that. Let me go back to activities here. So you've got Excel Module 2, Assignment 1, 2, and 3, and the objective test, again, all due by Thursday, October 9th. All right? And if you do have questions as you're working through Excel Module 2, and you may have some questions, there are some things that you probably haven't done before. Even those of you that have used Excel, we're going to be doing a little bit more complex kinds of formulas and functions that a lot of you probably have not done. And so if you have questions, instead of sending me an email, I would like you to use this Excel module to help discussion. That's what it's there for. You know, click on that, ask your question, and that way when I get back to you, when I reply to your question with the answer, it may help other students in the class that have similar questions. All right? That way we can kind of all help each other through the assignments. All right? And let's see. One other thing I need to point out, on Excel Module 2 assignments, it's going to have you do some functions, complete some functions at the very bottom of the worksheet. Specifically, it's going to have you calculate average and minimum and maximum values for a range of numbers in the worksheet. And the reason I point this out is because every semester I always end up with students who don't check the range that they're including in the functions. And so I want to remind everyone, you have to check to make sure that the range that it proposes in Excel to include in the calculation, you have to make sure that that's correct. In a lot of cases, you're going to have to drag through the correct range. It's not going to always propose the correct range for you. So you'll have to drag through the correct range. So that's something that a lot of students will kind of skip over and not think about. But just make sure you're taking your time and making sure that everything looks correct as you go through to complete your assignments. Don't only check the calculated values, but also check the formulas and functions. Specifically the argument part of the function, which is the last part of the function in parentheses. That is the range. The argument's just the range that you're including in the function, in the calculation. And you have to make sure that's correct in order to get the correct calculated value. All right? But now sometimes you'll get the correct calculated value even if the range, the argument part of the function is incorrect. So again, you have to be careful with that, especially with the minimum and maximum functions, because you could get the right minimum value in the range, but it may still not be the correct range that it's specified in the instructions. All right? So just kind of be careful with that. All right. So that's really all I have for you for today. So enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend, and I will talk to you again either later next week, probably Friday of next week, or if it's not that day, it'll be Monday the following week. Okay? So I will talk to you then. Thank you.